substance. Now, the government is to review the regulations that cover legal highs, synthetic drugs which can be bought online or over the counter. 52 deaths in England and Wales were attributed to these drugs last year, double the 2011 figure. We'll be debating whether new drug laws can do anything to deal with the problem in a moment. But first, Cordelia Lynch has been out shopping.
They can change your mood, your mind and your body. And they've changed the face of the global drug market. Now the trade in legal highs is being reviewed. But the government face a big beast of a problem, not least from the chemists. Every time one concoction is banned, another crops up.
Legal highs can be pretty easy to buy, and here in Camden in London, they're on show in the front of shops. So I've decided to see exactly what they're offering.
This high street is packed with research chemicals. They look a bit like energy supplements. But within minutes, the first thing recommended to me was a room odorizer.
People are really setting themselves up to be guinea pigs, really, in a situation where you don't really have any idea what's in the packet.
We also bought English. It contains isopropyl nitrate, which it turns out is used in jet engines.
But it's not all out in the open. In 5 shops I went into, they took me to the back and opened up shoe boxes where they were keeping pills.
But they at least have labels clearly stating they're not for human consumption.
Well, one man has just sold me this. He took it out from the till, but he told me he has no idea what it's called or what's inside it, just that it's extremely powerful.
So could more powerful and flexible legislation help? One option is a US-style model. There, drugs are automatically banned if they're substantially similar to the chemical structure of illegal substances. So far in the UK, 200 substances have been banned since the coalition came to power. The majority mimic the effects of cannabis, but other compounds that act like methadone and ecstasy have also been targeted. Among them, benzofury, which will become a Class B drug next year, and N-bomb, a hallucinogen, which will become a Class A substance. Shutting down businesses is another tactic. This week, police in Devon posed proudly alongside a £250,000 haul from a shop claiming to sell legal highs. But what about the producers? I showed the policing lead on psychoactive drugs what we'd bought.
This is what we got just in a day's shopping in this area. I mean, the law can't possibly keep up with the chemists, can it?
Well, you've identified one of the key problems here, in that substances like this, we don't actually know what's in any of those packets until you've assessed them and forensically examined them, to be quite honest. We're faced with countless white powders, and in the past, test purchasing of some of these items has shown up to 20% have contained controlled drugs, things that are already illegal.
Deaths from legal highs almost doubled to 52 last year, and the government says it wants a clampdown. But will that involve radical changes?
Well, joining me now in the studio is Professor David Nutt, a former government drugs advisor who is now chair of the Independent Scientific Committee on Drugs, and Marion Stewart, founder of the Angelus Foundation, which is opposed to all of the so-called legal high drugs. Her daughter Hester died after taking the drug GBL, which was then later banned. Let's turn to you first, Marion. Sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Do you think that if the drug had been banned when your daughter was thinking of taking drugs, she would still be alive today?
I don't think banned is the issue. I think that if she had knowledge, she was a medical student, and if she knew that the substance she was given, which was called GBL, plus a bit of alcohol that she'd had at the awards dinner she was at, would send her to sleep and she would die, she would never have touched it. And that's the whole point, because when she died, I found out that in Europe they'd had poster campaigns in the nightclubs saying that GBL plus alcohol equals death, but the Home Secretary here did nothing about it, and so she was unsuspecting, and so was her friend who gave it to her.
But the array of drugs out there is simply dizzying. I mean, they've got a small selection here on the table, and they've all got very euphemistic names. So how can you actually educate enough children to have enough knowledge about all these drugs when they keep reinventing themselves?
Well, that's why banning is a waste of time, really, because the fact of the matter is that what we've been doing, in fact, what happened in the media was that as when things were in the media, a lot like methadone, for example, they would sell out and the toxicologists couldn't even get any to measure. So we went back to the drawing board and we did focus groups and surveys. We asked young people in schools, what would move you? What kind of films would move you? And so we've developed a series of films. When we go into schools and show the films, over 75% of the young people say they feel angry and misled now that they know that legal doesn't mean safe. And
Professor
that's the whole
Nutt,
point.
you're agreeing, presumably?
Yeah, I mean, the reason we have so many of these compounds is because we have stopped access to safer compounds. And therefore, the chemists in China and the dealers here have tried to get around the law. And so we've gone, I mean, the worst example, of course, are these synthetic cannabinoids. If people could have access to cannabis like they do in countries like the Netherlands, they wouldn't be buying all these spice substances. And therefore, they wouldn't be subjecting themselves to the randomness of the harms of these new compounds.
Let me just look at this one particular example. Now, this is a drug called benzo extreme, which is actually called benzo fury not so long ago. It was then banned, slightly changed, and is back on the market legally as benzo extreme. I mean, it makes a mockery of any sense of regulation, doesn't it?
Well, this isn't regulation, this is banning. And this is one, as I said, the problem is people are getting around the law, and we need just a different approach. The law was created in 1971. The internet wasn't around then, it is now. People can make millions of compounds in China and import them. So we need a different approach. And the approach that Marian's pointed out is the correct approach. It should be education. Most people would prefer to know exactly what they're doing and make rational choices about what they're doing.
But the point is that you're saying that the right degree of education can only come about if you legalize a lot of the stuff that's illegal at the moment?
Well, no, I think you don't. It's not really a question of legal or illegal, but you just need to know what they are. But we are increasing the number of new chemicals because we are stopping people accessing drugs that they used to use, like cannabis and ecstasy.
But the onus must be put on the dealers and the sellers to prove that they're safe for human consumption. We can't have these things on the high street. I mean, Angela's got Amazon to take down from their websites worldwide in the summer, legal highs. Can you imagine that a young person could just go and order them through a website like Amazon? If they can go to their local pet shop, or if they can go to their local newsagent or garage and they can buy these things, let alone in the head shop, why wouldn't they think they're safe?
Now, I understand, obviously, why you're engaged in this campaign, but the deaths from legal highs was 52 last year. The deaths from Class A drugs was something like 2,000 last year. The deaths from alcohol-related incidents was 8,900.
But no one's measuring the harms. And every week we are contacted by people who've gone psychotic, who've had life-changing problems. They've lost their bladder, they're peeing blood, their eyesight's been damaged. No one's measuring what's going on. I mean, last week, 3 Welsh 15-year-olds ended up, they smoked something in the playground and ended up in hospital.
But people are always going to want to get high in one form or another, whether it's alcohol or drugs. It's going to happen.
And we should, I think, be honest about this and allow people access to safe intoxicants. And certainly some of these are not very safe, but old intoxicants like cannabis are relatively safe, and even ecstasy is much safer than some of these new compounds like PMA.
Just one final example. This one here says in very small writing, not fit for human consumption, but that's exactly what it's sold for.
And everybody knows they are, and they've managed to get around the law, and they're making an absolute fortune.
Okay, got to leave it there. Marion Stewart, Professor David Nutt, thanks very much.